and welcome to Math. Today we'll be looking at reducing fractions to the smallest possible terms. Okay, so when we're talking about reducing fractions to the lowest possible terms, we're going to start out by just reducing them. So if we think back to our times tables, which times table has 36 and 48 as their answers? Well, we know we can do the 6 times tables, so divide by 6, and whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. It has to be the match. So if we divide both by 6, then we end up with what times 6 is 36? 6. And what times 6 is 48? 8. So we end up with 6 eighths. Now over here, maybe you don't choose 6. Maybe you choose 2 is a number to divide by. Both of these are even numbers, and so we could divide them both by 2. And if we do it that, then we'll end up with what times 2 is 36? 18. And what times 2 is 48? And what times 2 is 48? 24. So this is another way. Both of these answers are correct. They've both reduced this fraction, but they don't match. And if we get these down to the lowest possible terms, they will always work out the same because they're equivalent. We're making equivalent fractions. So can we divide anything by 6 and 8? Yes, we can. We can still make this smaller. They can be divided by 2. So if we divide those by 2, what times 2 is 6? 3. What times 2 is 8? 4 times 2 is 8. So now we have 3/4. Can we go any smaller than this? Is there any number that can still divide evenly into both numbers? No, because 3 is a prime number. It's only divisible by itself, and 1. Now we'll go back to this one. This one, if you divided by 2 before, is there a timetable that'll go into this? 6s. You could do 2s again. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll do 2 again, because some people are just really good at figuring out halves. Whenever we divide by 2, you're basically saying what's half of that number. It's dividing it into 2 equal piles. So what's half of 18? What times 2 is 18? 9. What times 2 is 24? 12. Now from here, is this as small as we can go, or is there a number that we can divide into that again? Well, the next number we can divide into this might be 3. 3 divides into both of these evenly. So we have what times 3 equals 9? 3. And what times 3 equals 12? 4. And now they match. We know we've gotten to the lowest possible term. So this is how we reduce things to the lowest possible terms. It's as if it's easiest for you to always figure out what's half. If both of the numbers, the numerator and denominator, are even numbers, you can always do that. And if it's easier for you to just keep halving things, keep dividing by 2, then you can do that as far as you can go, and then work with another smaller number you're comfortable with, like 3. Otherwise, if you are more comfortable with the bigger times tables, you could start with a bigger number, and you might get to your answer a lot faster to bring it to the lowest possible terms. There's something called the greatest common factor. It's looking at the greatest thing you can, which multiplication table is the greatest to solve this. So if we were going to look at it that way, 36 and 48, the biggest common factor they would have is 12 times tables. So if you decided to go straight to the 12s, then what times 12 is 36? 3. What times 12 is 48? 4. and you're already at that same number. You're already at the smallest possible equivalent fraction. You can do it this way with finding the greatest common factor, the GCF. So if you know your times tables by rote, which means you've been practicing and practicing, and if somebody says to you, hey, what's 3 times 3? You can just say 9. That's really going to help you out because it'll be easier for you to know these answers. It'll be easier for you to look at these and say, hey, those are both part of my 12 times tables. Then you'll be able to do this part a lot more easily. You'll be able to know the greatest common factor in your head, and it'll be a lot quicker for you to get to the smallest equivalent fraction. If you're not so good with your times tables, but you're comfortable with halving things, as long as these are even numbers on the numerator and the denominator, you should be able to half it until you get to a smaller times table that you might be more comfortable with. Otherwise, just go with what you know, and eventually you'll get there. All you have to do is keep looking at each answer you come up with and say, will that divide down farther? If you can divide it evenly, then keep going until you get to the lowest one where it won't go down anymore.